Time flies. It is now 1987, and Art has made a name for himself as a writer. Sadly, Vladek wasn't there to see it. He passed away in 1982 from heart failure, but he would have liked to know that the first instalment of Maus was a big hit. Now everybody wants a piece of Art Spiegelman. There's talk of a TV show and even a movie. Despite all of this, Art has been feeling down in the dumps. The pressure has been getting to him. And it's not about to stop. In a few months, he's going to be a father to little baby Nadia. To get some direction and words of wisdom, Art goes to see his shrink, Pavel. He's a Jew who survived the camps just like Vladek. They have a good chat about Art's heavy, mixed feelings towards his career, his dad, and history. It's so difficult to understand the Holocaust, let alone write stories about someone else's experience. It's all giving Art a terrible bout of writer's block, but the sessions with Pavel help a lot. As he walks home, Art feels less stressed and ready to start the next part of Maus. So, let's return to Vladek and see how he's getting on in Auschwitz. It's 1944, and Vladek's just been sent to work as a tinsmith by his supervisor, the one he was teaching English to. When Vladek turned up for his first day of work, the chief of the tin men, Yedel, gave him a hard time. Yedel was a communist, and he'd heard that Vladek owned some factories. In Yedel's mind, Vladek was just a greedy capitalist. To everyone else, Yedel was the greedy one. To keep Yedel happy, Vladek and his fellow workers gave him food. Within the camps, food was very hard to come by. What the Nazis gave them was barely enough to live on. No wonder the Nazis had to keep checking who was still alive. The counts took forever. In the camp, Anja was always on Vladek's mind. She was 2 miles down the road from Vladek in a huge camp called Birkenau. But how could he get a message to her? Fortunately, he knew Manchi, a beautiful Hungarian Jew who sometimes worked at Birkenau. She became their messenger. 4 days later, Manchi had found Anja. Hearing that Vladek was still alive, Anja sobbed tears of joy. This news made Vladek cry, and Manchi cried with him. A few days later, Manchi came back with something even more special, a letter from Anja. Vladek learned Anja was having a tough time. Her supervisor was horrible. Anja was forced to carry the big cans of soup, but she kept on spilling it everywhere. She was just too weak. Vladek wrote back, Manchi was taking a big risk here. If the Nazis caught her, they'd kill her. But Manchi was a true romantic. She believed that lovers should always be connected, even if it was only through words. By the summer of 1944, Vladek got the chance to go to Birkenau himself. But his time with Anja was short. They couldn't even have a proper conversation. One time, a guard caught Vladek talking to Anja. He thought Vladek was flirting with her and gave him a severe beating for it. But better him than Anja. She wouldn't have survived that. Twice in Auschwitz, Vladek had to go through the selections. These were terrifying. He had to stand there naked whilst a doctor decided if he was strong enough to keep on working. If not, he'd be sent to the gas. Luckily, Vladek got the all clear. Vladek was a man of many skills. Now he managed to get a job as a shoemaker from the skills he picked up working for Milok. This was great. He got to sit in a warm room all day. It was definitely an upgrade from the workshop with Yedel. Vladek was so good that he became the shoemaker of choice for Nazi officials. They even paid him with food. Vladek's new job even helped Anja as well. Her supervisor's boots were falling apart. So, to get on her good side, Anja arranged for Vladek to fix them. Vladek did such a good job that Anja's supervisor completely changed her tune. No more heavy soup cans. One day, Vladek noticed that new barracks were being set up for women workers being transferred from Birkenau. This was Vladek and Anja's chance to be near each other. But how? It could be arranged, but for a fortune. 100 cigarettes and a bottle of vodka, to be exact. But the Nazis only gave them 3 cigarettes a week. Vladek was determined. Anja was worth it. By October 1944, Anja was in these new barracks. Vladek threw food packages over the fence to Anja. But one time, she was spotted. The supervisor chased Anja into the barracks, where she hid and managed to escape. The supervisor didn't know who she'd chased, and none of the other prisoners gave Anja up. So, the supervisor punished them all with cruel exercises. A short time later, Vladek lost his job as a shoemaker and had to do black work. It was backbreaking. They couldn't even take a break, or they'd get hit. Back in the Catskills in 1979, Vladek and Artie have returned from their walk. Françoise has been working on Vladek's bank paperwork this whole time. She's even made lunch. Over sandwiches, Vladek speaks more about Auschwitz. The Nazis knew the Russians were hot on their heels and would discover the concentration camps. But the Nazis wanted to continue exterminating their prisoners. They ordered Vladek and the other tin men to dismantle the gas chambers. They wanted to send all the prisoners back to Germany. Vladek now got the chance to see the gas chambers up close. They looked like communal showers, but it wasn't water that came out. It was Zyklon B, a deadly gas. The corpses were then taken from the chamber to the ovens to be incinerated. From May 1944, the Germans killed so many people that they had to dig mass graves. Here, the prisoners were burnt, dead or alive. Bang, bang! The Russians were closing in. Soon, the Nazis would evacuate the camp, but Vladek and some fellow prisoners had a plan. Instead of leaving, they were going to hide in an abandoned attic. Or so they thought. Rumour had it, the Nazis were going to burn down the whole place. It was chaos. Vladek had to flee before he could even get his stuff. The Nazis were marching everyone out of Auschwitz, and any stragglers got shot. During the long, cold march, some of Vladek's fellow prisoners saw an opportunity. They thought they could strike a deal with some Nazi soldiers to let them escape. But Vladek's gut told him he couldn't trust the Nazis. And he was right. The Nazis shot them as they ran. And so Vladek kept on marching. It seemed like it would last forever. Eventually, he ended up in Gross-Rosen, Germany. It was very disorganized. There were prisoners arriving from all over the place, and it seemed like the Nazis didn't know what they were doing. But Vladek didn't stay here for long. The next morning, he was put on a packed train. This train was meant for transporting livestock, not people, and it was standing room only. Luckily, Vladek had a blanket which he tied to some hooks to make a hammock. This allowed him to sit and breathe a little. He's sure this saved his life. Suddenly, the train came to a halt. They weren't going anywhere. The Nazis' plan was to starve them to death. It wasn't much, but Vladek survived by eating snow. He was one of the very few who survived. One day, the train started moving again, only to stop later. Expecting the worst, the traumatised prisoners couldn't believe their eyes. It was the Red Cross, and they were giving everyone bread and coffee. But this was short-lived. They were now headed for Dachau, another camp in Germany. Dachau was infested with lice. The Nazis even used this to starve the prisoners. Anyone with lice on their shirt got no food. How cruel. Out in the yard, Vladek met a French prisoner. The Frenchman was on the verge of losing his mind because no one could understand him, as he couldn't speak German or Polish. Fortunately, they both could speak some English. Every day, the Frenchman found Vladek. He was a good friend to have. Since he wasn't a Jew, the Nazis allowed his family to send him food, which he shared with Vladek. Vladek couldn't believe his eyes. Biscuits, chocolates, sardines. What luxuries. An idea popped into Vladek's head. He used some of the chocolate to buy 2 clean shirts for when they were inspected for lice at mealtime. This way they made sure they always got their rations. Clever Vladek. After a few weeks, there was a typhus outbreak due to the lice infestation. Vladek couldn't escape this stroke of bad luck. People were dropping dead from it every day. To make matters even worse, he always needed the toilet. But he could barely get there. The bodies were piled so high, he had to walk on top of the dead. In the infirmary, all Vladek did was sleep. But the Nazis were about to send prisoners to the Swiss border. They were going to free them, and Vladek was one of them. With the help of some friends, he made it to the train, which was designed for human passengers. Back in the Catskills, Françoise spots a hitchhiker. She stops to give him a lift, but Vladek can't believe his ears. He doesn't trust the hitchhiker. He thinks that because he's black, he's going to steal their groceries. Françoise is appalled. She scolds Vladek for being so racist, especially after he experienced such terrible racism himself. The argument starts to heat up, and Art steps in as peacemaker. Soon, they arrive back at the bungalow. But what a tense car ride. But about this train ride to Switzerland, is this another trick? Or are the prisoners finally being freed? Stay tuned to find out. We hope you enjoyed this Schooling Online production. For more easy lessons, check out our other videos.